At 3:47 a.m., a loud alarm shattered the silence at Central Memorial Hospital. It was another emergency, one of many that month. But this one would change everything. This was the night that uncovered one of the most shocking medical crimes in recent history. Security cameras captured Nurse Rachel Bennett doing what she always did, caring for patients with kindness. Her warm smile and gentle voice made her popular among staff and patients alike. But behind that caring image, something dark was happening. Rachel had worked the night shift for 7 years. Her coworkers called her the Night Angel. Always available, never complaining, and keeping perfect records. Too perfect. She had a way of knowing what was wrong before it happened, said Dr. James Cooper, head of emergency medicine. At first, we thought it was just experience. Now we know better. Despite her senior position, Rachel lived simply. She rented a modest apartment, drove an old car, and volunteered for extra shifts, especially during the holidays. We thought she was just being kind, said fellow nurse Sarah Martinez. None of us knew about her growing debt. The first signs of trouble appeared in the fall. Small things, missing medications, inventory mistakes, patients reporting lost belongings. Nothing major, but enough to make some uneasy. Head nurse Margaret Wilson was the first to notice something was off. The numbers didn't add up, she said, nervously adjusting her badge. Expensive medications always disappeared during Rachel's shifts. When questioned, Rachel always had a flawless explanation. Too flawless. Security footage showed her moving confidently through the halls, accessing the medication room more than others. Every report she filed was precise. Too precise. In medicine, nothing is perfect, Dr. Cooper explained. There are always minor mistakes. When records are too clean, that's when we start asking questions. By winter, patients under Rachel's care began experiencing strange symptoms. Many felt disoriented, had memory gaps, or noticed unexpected charges on their insurance. The hospital launched a quiet investigation, but Rachel's spotless record made it hard to prove anything. Then came the night everything changed. I was making my rounds when I heard the alarm, said Dr. Lisa Chan, the resident on duty. What I found in room 342 didn't match the records. Something was very wrong. The patient, Michael Torres, had been admitted for routine observation. But what happened to him would unravel a scheme so complex it would shock the entire medical field. As investigators soon realized, Michael wasn't the start of this story. He was just the first solid piece of evidence. The truth stretched back months, maybe even years. Rachel Bennett had turned Central Memorial's night shift into her own hunting ground. As the investigation deepened, a tangled web of deception came to light, forcing hospitals everywhere to question their security measures. But first, they had to answer one crucial question. Who was the real Rachel Bennett? It started with the jewelry. Janet Cooper, a patient at Central Memorial Hospital, recalled the moment she noticed her wedding ring was missing. I thought I misplaced it, she said. But now I know better. She wasn't the only one. Over the next few months, more patients reported missing valuables. At first, no one connected the dots. But security footage told a different story. Nurse Rachel Bennett, always calm and caring, always there when things went missing. Looking closer, investigators noticed a pattern. Rachel preferred the graveyard shift, specifically in the West Wing, where recent renovations left security cameras with blind spots. Sarah Martinez, a fellow nurse, started seeing strange things. She spent too much time in the medication room, Sarah said. Whenever I asked if she needed help, she had a perfect excuse. Always. The first major red flag came in the fall. Expensive medications kept disappearing. Not in large amounts, just enough to avoid suspicion. Head nurse Margaret Wilson took note. 2 doses here, 3 there, she recalled, flipping through pages of records. Always during Rachel's shifts. Always with perfect paperwork. That perfection was a problem. In healthcare, mistakes happen, Dr. James Cooper explained. But when everything is too clean, too precise, it means someone's hiding something. Then, insurance claims started looking strange. Patients were billed for treatments they never received. Thomas Green, admitted for routine monitoring, notice charges for high-cost medications. When questioned, Rachel had an answer for everything. She knew the system inside and out, Dr. Cooper said. That's why it was so hard to catch her. Security began watching her closely. Footage showed Rachel taking frequent trips to her car during breaks, always on nights when medication went missing. Her behavior changed too. She worked more overtime, took extra shifts on holidays, and became more guarded around the medication room. Looking back, there were signs, Sarah admitted. She got nervous when other nurses helped her patients. She always worked when administration wasn't around. Then, things took a darker turn. Patients under Rachel's care started reporting unusual symptoms, feeling overly sedated, memory gaps, unexplained insurance charges. I knew something was wrong, Wilson said. But Rachel was respected, trusted. How do you accuse someone like that? The breaking point came with Michael Torres in room 342. A successful businessman, admitted for routine observation, he became the key to unraveling Rachel's deception. What happened in room 342 exposed more than stolen medications. It revealed a calculated scheme that had gone undetected for months, maybe years. But the truth was even bigger than Central Memorial Hospital. Rachel wasn't acting alone. And soon, the quiet investigation would become very public. It all started with missing jewelry. Janet Cooper, a patient at Central Memorial Hospital, spent 3 nights in the medical wing, only to realize her wedding ring had vanished. At first, I thought I misplaced it, she recalls. But now I know better. She wasn't the only one. Over the following months, at least 5 other patients reported missing valuables. Security footage showed Rachel Bennett, a trusted and well-respected nurse, moving through her shifts with her usual calm efficiency, her warm smile never faltering. But when investigators looked closer, a troubling pattern emerged. She consistently volunteered for overnight shifts in the West Wing, where security coverage was weakest due to recent renovations. Sarah Martinez, a fellow nurse who often worked alongside Rachel, had noticed odd behaviors. She spent too much time in the medication room, Sarah remembers. Whenever I asked if she needed help, she always had a perfect explanation. Every time. The first real red flag appeared in late autumn when the hospital's inventory system flagged a series of small but consistent medication shortages. The numbers weren't drastic enough to sound an immediate alarm, but they were frequent and always during Rachel's shifts. Head nurse Wilson, growing suspicious, started keeping her own private records. The discrepancies were small, 2 doses here, 3 there, but the paperwork was flawless, Wilson explains. And in healthcare, perfect paperwork is often more suspicious than minor mistakes. Then came the insurance claims. Patients' medical bills listed expensive treatments and medications they had no recollection of receiving. Thomas Green, who had been admitted for routine monitoring, discovered charges for premium medications that were never administered to him. When questioned, Rachel had answers for everything. She knew our systems inside and out, says Dr. Cooper. That's what made it so difficult to prove anything was wrong. The hospital's security team began quiet observations. Surveillance footage revealed Rachel making frequent trips to her car during breaks. Not unusual for a night shift worker, except that her movements coincided with medication shortages. Her behavior also started to shift subtly. She took on more overtime, particularly on holidays when staffing was minimal. Once open and friendly, she became more guarded, especially around the medication storage areas. Looking back, there were so many red flags, Sarah Martinez admits, fidgeting with her ID badge. She tensed up when other nurses offered to help. She always volunteered for shifts when no one from administration was around. By early winter, patient complaints had taken a darker turn. Several reported feeling excessively sedated during Rachel's shifts. Some had gaps in their memory, unsure of what had happened overnight. Their insurance records, however, showed claims for medications they never should have needed. I knew something wasn't right, head nurse Wilson says, her voice heavy with regret. But Rachel was so well respected, so trusted. How do you accuse someone who seems perfect at their job? The case broke wide open with Michael Torres, a successful businessman admitted for routine observation in room 342. His stay would unravel Rachel's carefully constructed facade. On the night in question, Torres woke up feeling disoriented. "I felt strange," he recalls. "My expensive watch was missing, and when I reviewed my insurance statement later, I found charges for treatments I never received." When he confronted Rachel, her usual kindness vanished. "I saw something different behind that caring smile," Torres says. The hospital security team reviewed footage from room 342. What they found was chilling. Rachel entering Torres' room while he was sedated, methodically going through his belongings. But this wasn't just theft. The deeper investigators dug, the more they realized they were dealing with something much bigger. Detective James Wilson from the Medical Crimes Unit took over the case. "This wasn't random theft," he explains. "It was a highly sophisticated operation that required an in-depth understanding of hospital systems." As they widened their investigation, they discovered that Rachel had worked at 3 other hospitals, all of which had reported similar patterns: missing medications, suspicious insurance claims, and stolen patient valuables. "She knew exactly how to exploit the system," says Hospital Administrator Janet Collins. "She worked during shifts when supervision was low. She targeted heavily sedated or elderly patients, and her documentation was so meticulous that it slipped through routine audits." But Rachel wasn't acting alone. As investigators dug deeper, they uncovered something even more sinister: a network operating within the healthcare system, using Rachel as an inside operator. The medication theft and insurance fraud were just the surface. The real question wasn't just what she had done, Detective Wilson says grimly. It was who else was involved. The security footage from room 342 was the key to unraveling the entire scheme. It showed Rachel accessing restricted areas, removing medications, and making multiple trips to her car. But that wasn't all. Sarah Martinez finally came forward with a crucial memory. "One night, I saw Rachel meeting someone in the parking lot around 3 a.m. She handed them a package. They were wearing hospital scrubs, but not from our facility. She hesitated before reporting it. Now she wishes she had acted sooner." Meanwhile, Michael Torres' testimony provided another breakthrough. "I woke up partially while she was in my room," he says. "I saw her injecting something into my four. When I questioned her, she got defensive, almost threatening. That was the final piece of the puzzle." Head nurse Wilson's meticulous logs showed months of stolen medications, falsified records, and unauthorized insurance claims, all pointing to Rachel. But it didn't stop there. Detective Wilson's investigation uncovered a pattern across multiple hospitals. Rachel had never stayed at one facility for too long. She worked just long enough to gain trust before moving on, leaving behind a trail of unexplained shortages and fraudulent claims. When hospital administrators conducted a full audit of their night shift operations, what they found was alarming. "Rachel manipulated the system in ways we never thought possible," Collins says. "She knew exactly when security was light and how to cover her tracks." The scheme unraveled quickly. Surveillance footage showed Rachel making regular trips to her car, often carrying small packages. Financial records revealed suspicious deposits into offshore accounts. "She kept up a modest lifestyle to avoid suspicion," Detective Wilson explains. But the money told a different story. The deeper investigators dug, the more disturbing the truth became. This wasn't just about stolen medications or fraudulent insurance claims. Rachel had been a key player in a far-reaching criminal network that had infiltrated multiple healthcare facilities. "This case is far bigger than one corrupt nurse," Wilson says. "We're looking at a coordinated effort to exploit hospitals, patients, and insurance companies. And we're only beginning to understand just how deep this goes." As the investigation widened, hospital staff and patients alike were left reeling. The hardest part, Dr. Cooper admits, wasn't the theft or the fraud. It's knowing that someone we trusted, someone we considered family, could betray us so completely. The hospital's final audit revealed something even more shocking. What started as an investigation into missing medications had exposed a sophisticated criminal network spanning multiple hospitals. Forensic accountant Lisa Parker examined the financial records. Rachel wasn't just stealing medications, she explains. She was part of an operation that had been running for months, if not years. Similar cases at other hospitals followed the same methodology. Flawless documentation, strategic shifts, and unexplained shortages. We finally saw the pattern, head nurse Wilson says. And once we did, it became impossible to ignore. The final breakthrough came with Rachel's financial records. Investigators traced regular deposits matching the street value of stolen medications. But even more alarming were the fraudulent insurance payouts. Sarah Martinez, still grappling with guilt, shared what she had seen. Rachel met with different people in the parking lot, always in hospital uniforms from other facilities. It was like a network. The evidence pointed to one conclusion: Rachel hadn't acted alone. She had been carefully chosen for her role, her spotless record making her the perfect insider. This wasn't just about stealing drugs, Detective Wilson says. This was a highly organized effort to exploit the healthcare system on every level. Michael Torres, whose confrontation had brought the case to light, was just one of many victims. I found thousands of dollars in fraudulent charges on my insurance statement, he says. Treatments I never received. Procedures that never happened. As investigators connected the dots, the true scale of the operation became clear. The question wasn't just how much had been stolen, but how many people were involved, and how far this conspiracy reached. And most chilling of all, who was really pulling the strings? The hospital administration was forced to confront difficult questions. How had someone so trusted managed to operate undetected for so long? The answer lay in Rachel Bennett's carefully crafted image of perfection. But as investigators dug deeper, an even more shocking truth emerged. Rachel's crimes extended beyond medical fraud. Her connections led to a far more dangerous world of organized crime, exposing corruption at the highest levels of the healthcare system. This case goes beyond one nurse's actions, Detective Wilson revealed, his expression grim. We're looking at a systematic exploitation of hospitals across the state, and we're uncovering ties to individuals in powerful positions. The scope of the investigation expanded, drawing in federal authorities. The FBI's Healthcare Fraud Unit launched its own probe, uncovering links between Rachel's activities and a much larger criminal network. What makes this case unique is the level of sophistication, explained FBI agent Jennifer Roberts. This wasn't a case of simple theft. It was a calculated operation requiring deep knowledge of hospital systems and insurance loopholes. As the truth came to light, hospital staff struggled with feelings of betrayal. We trusted her completely, said Dr. Cooper, shaking his head. She was the last person anyone would have suspected. That's what made her so dangerous. The case culminated in a series of arrests that sent shockwaves through the medical community. Rachel Bennett's carefully maintained world crumbled when federal agents finally closed in. The evidence was overwhelming, said Agent Roberts. We uncovered her testimony, however, proved critical in securing convictions. Head nurse Wilson's meticulous record-keeping became the cornerstone of the prosecution's case. Sometimes being called overly detailed pays off, Wilson said with a sad smile. The investigation revealed that Rachel's criminal network extended to at least 5 other hospitals, each experiencing similar patterns of theft and fraud. Until now, no one had connected the dots. The total financial losses ran into the millions. What's most disturbing, Detective Wilson explained, is how Rachel exploited the trust placed in her. She used her reputation for perfection as a shield to hide her crimes in plain sight. In response, the hospital overhauled its hiring policies, introducing deeper background checks and frequent audits. We can't just rely on appearances anymore, Collins stated. We need real accountability at every level. Rachel Bennett ultimately faced multiple federal charges. The prosecution laid out a damning case of systematic theft, insurance fraud, and patient endangerment. Her once perfect facade crumbled under the weight of the overwhelming evidence. In the end, she was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. The judge's words were scathing. You didn't just steal medications or money, he declared. You stole people's trust in the healthcare system. The wider criminal network was exposed, leading to dozens of arrests across multiple states. Investigators uncovered similar operations at hospitals nationwide, triggering a sweeping review of security protocols in healthcare facilities. "This case changed everything," said Detective Wilson. "It showed us that sometimes the biggest threats come from the people we trust the most." At Central Memorial Hospital, the road to recovery would be long. "We're more vigilant now," said Sarah Martinez, "but we also support each other more. We've learned to trust our instincts when something feels off." Michael Torres took his experience and channeled it into action, starting a patient advocacy group dedicated to preventing similar crimes. "Something good had to come from this," he explained. "If we can protect even one patient from exploitation, it's worth it." The case of Rachel Bennett stands as a stark reminder that trust must always be balanced with accountability. As hospitals across the country tighten security, the healthcare community is left grappling with a crucial question. How do you maintain compassionate care while protecting against those who seek to exploit the system? The lesson isn't that we should stop trusting healthcare professionals, Administrator Collins concluded. It's that we need safeguards in place to protect both patients and honest workers from those who would abuse that trust. The lights still burn through the night at Central Memorial Hospital, but something has changed. Behind the steady rhythm of patient care, a new awareness lingers. Sometimes the greatest threats come from the people we least expect. The case of Rachel Bennett serves as a sobering reminder of how easily trust can be manipulated for personal gain. Her crimes were not just about financial fraud. They shattered the faith that patients and colleagues placed in the healthcare system. While justice was served, the scars left behind will take time to heal. However, in the wake of her deception, important changes emerged. Hospitals strengthened their security protocols. Staff became more vigilant, and patients like Michael Torres turned their experiences into advocacy efforts. The tragedy of this case was undeniable, but it also became a catalyst for reform, ensuring that the same mistakes would not be repeated. In the end, the lesson is clear. Trust is vital in healthcare, but it must be reinforced by accountability. Rachel Bennett's actions may have exploited the system, but they also forced an industry-wide reckoning, one that will ultimately protect the very people she once put at risk.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more